Hey friends, welcome back to Hey Wait. This is Jay, and I have got a really special show for you today. I'm talking with Dr. Ingrid Clayton, and she's here to explain the fawn response and why so many of us lose ourselves in relationships because of it, and how to start unfawning. If you don't know Dr. Ingrid Clayton, she's a clinical psychologist, a trauma therapist, and a complex trauma survivor who quite literally wrote the book on fawning. And if you don't know what fawning is, it's about your nervous system operating as if your safety lives outside of you, which leads you to acting as if your worth depends on how well you keep everyone else happy. It leads you to shapeshift, overgive, or manage other people's emotions just to feel safe. It leads to abandoning yourself, gaslighting yourself, or losing yourself over and over again in one-sided relationships. And as fawners in recovery, both Ingrid and I can and do talk about all of this through our own personal experience. In this conversation, we also talk about what fawning is, how it shows up physiologically, how it's linked with complex trauma, but also with so many societal factors. And I also bring her questions that some of you wrote in asking about how to stop fawning and how you can tell when you're engaging in healing in your relationships versus repeating old fawning patterns, and so much more. But my favorite part of this conversation with Ingrid is that she models so beautifully what it's like to be a person who knows how to be with herself and be true to herself while also being relational and intellectual. It's really remarkable. I think you'll see it and feel it. As you listen, I hope you feel seen, I hope you feel moved, and I hope you feel a little more whole just for listening. Dr. Ingrid Clayton, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. We are a little bit twinsy, so I feel like we're starting out on a good connection level here. I really am so happy and so grateful that you're here. We talk a lot about fawning here. We talk a lot about trying to stay with yourself when you're around other people. So you're like the guest for us on Hey Wait.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really honored. I love that you are so steeped in this topic.
Well, sadly, because I've had a lot of experience of it myself. That's how one gets steeped in this
That's always
topic.
the
I do
truth.
believe.
That's the heartbreaking reality. If you understand it, it's because it's lived experience and you've been there.
Yeah.
And sadly, what's also true is that the people who don't get it, they also have no experience to relate to it at all. And so they cannot wrap their head around it. And I just go, oh, how lovely for you that you've never been so disempowered that your body was left with this final choice.
I honestly don't know what to do with that. My mouth is agape. I have a hard time imagining that someone couldn't relate to that. I'm like, isn't this just being a human?
I mean, yeah, but certainly go to social media and look at some of the, previous influencers on people pleasing and all the judgment that they're throwing around it. I go, wow, you've never walked one step in these shoes, and it shows. And yeah, that's
Well, and I think that's what's so powerful about your book. I'm going to hold it up for anybody that's watching here on YouTube. There it is. Though I was rereading this in preparation. I've read it a couple times, Dr. Ingrid. I was rereading it, and every time I read it, the thing that sticks out for me is that this is not your typical self-help book. It's far from a textbook on fawning. It is your story, and it is the story of the 7 clients that came forward. And so this is what I want to honor you with. So it makes me think of this quote. This has been one of my favorite quotes for 2.5 decades. I learned it from one of my mentors, Angelo Lazenka. And listener, you might remember I interviewed him earlier on this season. The quote's from Barry Lopez, and it says, "Sometimes a person needs a story more than food to stay alive. That is why we put these stories in each other's memory. This is how people care for themselves."
Wow, I'm so moved by that. I know.
It gets me every time I say it out loud. And that's what your book is. It is a way of caring for the people who, like you just said, have been shamed and blamed and told this is a personal failing, that they people please and they caretake, that this through your story that's so candid and so real, you're giving the people who read this the gift of being seen and like being able to go, oh my God, that's what I do.
That means literally everything to me. I will share that when I was selling this book and meeting with the different publishers, I did not fawn in those meetings. And I came to them saying, if you want a typical self-help book, I'm not your gal. Because I believe so many self-help books are performing helpfulness.
Yes.
In a very marketable way.
And almost like patting on the head, like this is
you just do these things and it's so obvious and it's clear and then we'll be all done. And aren't we all just like so grateful for it? And I believe those books continue to shame and blame people because they do all the 10 steps and they do it so earnestly and they walk away going, why am I still having this experience? Right. So I really wanted to lead with lived experience as the teacher. And so it just means a lot to me. And that quote, it feels beautiful? Like even the writing of the book I shared a little bit with you before we started is my learning, right? Delving into each sentence about like, but what is this thing that I'm really trying to say? And then I see something about it I never saw before. Not only was it my learning, but it was part of reanimating myself as a human being, not even reanimating, almost like animating for the first time, where I talk about this in the book somewhere. We go from feeling like we're Pinocchio on strings to like, I'm a real live boy, you know, that becoming a real person is a part of what I think can happen. What has certainly happened for me as I've understood that fawning was in the driver's seat for most of my life. It wasn't me. Yeah. And now I feel like it can be me, right? And that is just as important as food, water, and air. Before it was a performance of a person in the world. And now I get to be here.
Which that leads me, the other question I had as I was reading through it, I was like, if I ever get to talk to Dr. Ingrid about this,
and you
I want
can
to
just
know.
Call me Ingrid, by the way.
Okay, Ingrid. If I ever get to talk to Ingrid about this, I want to know if someone from the future had come to you when you were like 25 or 30 and said, you're going to write this book. I mean, even just saying it makes me want to cry. Like if somebody had said, you're going to write this book, how would that have landed for you at the time?
That makes me even more emotional. I think, I forget if I talked about this in Fawning or if it was from my memoir, but I have very vivid memories of me as a child searching all the hidden cabinets and corners of my house. Like I was looking for the answers. I knew that there was something that was going on and that I needed to find out what it was.
Yeah.
Right? This like detective sort of mission. As a little child, I climbed onto the top of the refrigerator into those little cabinets above, like, is it there? And so I think that at times I was aware of that sort of mission and other times I wasn't, but now I can look back and see that through line so clearly that I've been searching and seeking and hope. It's why I went to graduate school. It's why I've, did my dissertation research on spiritual bypass, all these things. But to be able to see now that it was all leading up to my ability to really understand this fawn response. To be honest, it's a two-part response to your question. One is like blown away and grateful and like, you're kidding me, get out of here. The other one is like, do I then get to have this information as a 25-year-old? Like, can I time travel and give it to myself at that age? Because I think about that a lot. What if I would have been given this information as a younger person instead of being told, well, why wouldn't you love yourself, Ingrid? You're so great, right? Or all of these other things. What would have happened? Like, I don't know. Other people are going to find out. I'm grateful for that.
Other people are going to find out because of you and because of, let's just like, thank you to the mainstream publishing world who said like, no. But yeah, other people are going to find out because I would say, and I'm sure this is true for you, it comes up over and over and over again with my clients. Once they finally get the taste of what unfawning feels like,
that's right.
Our very next session, we talk about grief.
Oh, yeah.
because there's the like, what could my life have been if
Yeah,
I knew this 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago?
that's right. That's right. And yes, props to big publishing. I think that was the biggest shock of my life when I met my now agents, and they said to me, because I didn't know, big publishing wants a book on the fawn response, and we think you're the one to write it. And my whole body just like lit up in flames. I was like, what do you mean they want a book on this topic? And I knew more than maybe I've known anything ever that I absolutely had to write that book. I was kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And I was really in a place of transition, and the second that sentence came out of their mouth, it was the clearest thing I've ever felt. Like my whole life has led up to the ability to write this book and simultaneously, can I do it? Is there enough to say? And then when I put pen to paper, I was like, this is like 5 books. How am I going to reduce it to 1? So yeah, I love that we're at a time where this material is accessible and available in this mainstream way. I think that's amazing.
Yes, agreed. I've got like 6 different questions, and I feel like maybe for the person, I'm just assuming the person listening knows what fawning is,
Yeah.
but can we just quickly say what is fawning if somebody doesn't know what we're talking about here?
Yes.
And also specifically, what's the difference between that and just being kind and empathic?
Yes. Great. So fawning, or the fawn response, is a relational trauma response. And what most of us have heard of are fight, flight, and freeze. So we're sort of referring to this as the 4th F in that equation. But it's relational because it happens in relationships, right? So the fight response or the flight response might happen in a natural disaster or something like that, right? Where the body snaps into it instinctually. But with fawning, the body leans into what can look like, we sometimes call it the please and appease response. That's why we talk about it as that people pleasing. It can look like caretaking. It's sort of, I need you. This is a vital relationship for my survival. It's often with childhood trauma, right? We go, oh my gosh, I need you, my caregiver, for my survival, but you're not available. You're neglectful. You're, involved in all sorts of things. And my body wants to kind of run circles around yours and help you so that hopefully one day you can turn around and help me back. So it presents very differently depending on the relationship itself. But what tends to happen, and this is what differentiates it from just being kind or I forget the other words that you
empathic.
Yes, thank you. Is that we self-abandon in order to manage what's happening in the relationship. So it's not a conscious choice, right? I can decide, oh my gosh, I have the bandwidth, I'm available, I would love to be there for you right now. That feels very different.
And I'm still with me when I do that. Like I can
right.
be there for you and be with me.
Exactly right. And so with fawning, there is a level to which it's a hybrid response, to get a little technical for a second. So one part is hyper aroused, which is the adrenaline piece. It has us, managing the relationships. It's very active. But at the same time, there's a hypo arousal, which can also be talked about like dissociation, depression. There's this down regulation where we're disconnecting from our higher self, our fuller need. And so I talk about that. You mentioned that I move a lot into my personal experience as a way to illustrate it. And I think it's really helpful. So my stepfather was grooming me as a young girl. And I start the book at this scene where I'm in the hot tub with him. And my body suddenly knows in a new way that it didn't know before that I am not safe, right? But I have to also live with this man day in, day out. He holds all the power in my family. Where am I going to run? Nowhere. Am I going to fight back? What is 2-3 times my size? Again, I'm a child. Fighting back would make it worse. So my body starts to instinctively go, I may need to make sure that he's not embarrassed, that he's not ashamed, that he's not mad at me. I need to smile. I can ask questions, but they need to come out very neutral and unobtrusive in a way. I'm not going to get up and run away. I'm going to sit there in this dangerous place until there's a natural opportunity for me to sort of get up and leave. All of these things are essentially the fawn response in that moment. I'm abandoning myself because I have to stay. I have to stay.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. As you're sitting there in the hot tub,
Yes.
you can't really be there. You're there, but
Right.
you've got to go away and be everywhere else to make sure you're managing. Because if your only safety is outside of you,
That's
that's
right.
where you've got to be.
And that definition of what you're saying is so important. Our entire sense of safety resides outside our own body when we're fawning. And so, yes, we're hypervigilant and all of our energy is to the external world. It's why we're really interested in, like, are you mad at me? Do you validate me? Do you give permission? Are we okay? But going back to that young girl in the hot tub, I knew day in, day out, I did not like this man. And I knew I needed him to like me, but only at a distance, right? There's a lot
Yes.
of moving parts here, like me, but don't like me that much.
Which is why I think so much of the time, one of the behaviors we get blamed for as fawners or internally blame ourselves for is manipulation.
That's right.
Because it's total manipulation.
And it can look like consent. It can look like conscious awareness. It's none of those things. I did not choose to engage in this way. I can only, in hindsight, go back and mine what was happening moment to moment. And the other thing is, because I have a lifetime of a fawn response to draw from, as do a lot of my clients, there are times where it does feel more conscious. It's like conscious-ish. And other times where, quite frankly, I use my own mother as an example. Like, she is still not aware of any of her experiences coming from a fawn response. She genuinely believes that this man was her everything, that they were deeply in love. Yeah. And, who am I to say for somebody else? And yet, based on what I witnessed, I believe that is what was happening, right? So there, it's like there was no contrary thought anywhere in her mind. It was like, right. No.
Fully indoctrinated in fawn.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So I mentioned before we started recording that I had some questions from people who were listening. Oh, yeah. One of the ones that comes up based on what you just said is, can you be a fawner only some of the time with some people? Yeah. And let me, yeah, you're like, yes, but here's the context within. And I thought this was interesting. She said, because in your book, a lot of your examples come from people with serious childhood trauma. Yeah. And she says, I don't relate to that. Yeah. But I also don't feel like I've totally lost myself in fawning around everyone. So I guess the question is, does minor childhood trauma equal minor fawning?
That is so interesting. I think all of this falls on a spectrum. Because we're people and we have different experiences, I don't think it's a black and white either or scenario. So I think there's a lot of nuance that you always have to bring into this answer. But to add a little more context to that, most of my experience and working with clients as someone who specializes in childhood trauma, the examples come from childhood trauma. But when I was writing the book, the enormity of the systems piece in general, it just it felt shocking, almost embarrassingly so, because it's so obvious. So it's not just childhood trauma. It's any system of power that you reside in. That could be racial, it could be class, it could be patriarchy, you name it. Every, corporations and education and all these systems of power that we all reside in, day out. The body understands where it resides in the pecking order. And the body understands, I'm a woman, for example, right? So just going out into the world, I'm going to have a different experience. And my body knows, are fight, flight, or freeze available to me, or would they make it worse? That is when fawning tends to step in. And if it's worked, the body remembers, oh, that worked for me before. So the body chooses that time and time again. Like I said, once it was successful. So you don't have to have any childhood trauma, to be honest, to have a fawn response. You have to live in a system that has ideas, spoken or not, that any hierarchy, right? And that's the reason that, to go back to where we started, it's almost shocking to think that someone has literally no experience with this. It literally means like, wow, you are at the top of the food chain all the time. Good
Are
for
you a
you.
narcissist?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Right. So
yeah.
I want to make sure there were so many parts to the question if it feels like.
If I think you got it, whether
Okay.
you fawn some of the time with some people and
Oh,
whether,
well, that's
yeah,
the other thing. That's so true in my experience and my clients as well. Sometimes there are tricky relationships that trigger us for a particular reason or different dynamics. Some people go, I always fawn in romantic relationships, but I'm a boss at my job. Like I have no problem speaking my mind. So it really shows up differently for all kinds of different reasons. And mostly, I think what a cool awareness to know that about yourself. Like, oh,
yeah,
here's the tricky piece. This is where I need to bring my attention. And maybe even my, um, what's the word I'm looking for? How I hold on to myself in this area of my life. You have that part online. So you can use that, right? And go, well, where do you go when I'm in this situation? And use an internal family systems framework even to start to try to integrate so that it's not so fragmented.
yes, right. Like that's a perfect opportunity to be able to say, hey, wait, this is me fawning. I don't do it with everyone else. So how do I create more safety for myself from the
That's right.
inside out? How
That's
do
right.
I feel like more of a presence for myself in this one space? Because that's a huge part of why the fawning would be coming up in the first place. It's like I always think of it or feel it as like I'm becoming a phantom version of myself.
Oh,
How do
wow.
I come back to a solid version of Jay?
And if you know you're going into the lion's den, so to speak, to connect with the solid part of you before you go in, that idea of bookending, right?
Mm.
About like, okay, I'm going to go to that family member's house or I'm going to go to this event. How do I connect with that solid, whole experience of me, highest self, however you want to frame it, before and then after the event? And it can change who you are in between.
Yes, it
Yeah.
can. And one of the things I loved about you sent a newsletter out a few months ago
Mm.
where someone asked the question about essentially like, I know about fawning now. I know that I do this, and I'm in a marriage and a relationship where I can't get out of it for X number of reasons.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I'll ever not be able to fawn in this situation. And your response was so graceful and so
Mhm.
human because you were
Mhm.
like, that's okay. Yes to claiming more of yourself and unfawning, and no to shaming yourself for not being able to unfawn when you know that it's an option.
That's right. Because the reality is what we're talking about. A lot of these things that we're asking of people, or historically asked of people, are a tremendous privilege or right that is not afforded to them.
Bingo.
And oh, it just, I don't even know how to articulate what comes up in my body when I even think about that in this moment. It infuriates me. I guess it's rage. Let's call it rage.
Yeah.
Um, So we have to be really careful. And again, I think unfortunately self help can do that too. It sort of takes all the realities of your actual life and like it doesn't exist. We cannot do that when we're talking about relational trauma. So for me, this could just make me sob. Thinking about the person that wrote me that email, that is their unfawning.
Yeah.
To say, here's my reality. And look, I'm able to articulate it on the page and I'm sending it to you right now. And I'm very clear that I'm not leaving for whatever reason that is mine. And how do I continue to be with myself? I go, your answer is contained in the way that you wrote
Yes.
the very question. Because that's the whole point. I love, to go back to the whole point of your podcast. How do we stay with ourselves? That's it. We don't get plopped into some make-believe land.
Mhm.
Life
Yeah.
is hard. Relationships are hard. That's what we're navigating.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you remember the first time that you consciously unfawned?
Whoa. I want to say no, because I think for me, the first thing that happened, well, there is no first. It was like a series of 8 million things over time. But what came to me in the moment that you asked the question, for people that don't know, I spent 5 years writing a memoir that I had no intention of writing before I was able to write this book on fawning. I could not have written this book on fawning if I didn't spend all that time excavating my own story, because I couldn't even say that I had complex trauma. I couldn't say I was a childhood trauma survivor. I couldn't use any of those words. It was like, my story wasn't that bad. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was very much living in my head.
And that's so common for complex trauma.
That's right. That's right. Practically defines my experience more than anything else, are all the symptoms I was living with like, I'm fine. It's, let me help you. But it was in the ability to name what actually happened was vital for me to start to go, oh, that's what this is. Because prior to that, I don't even think how could I use the language of trauma response, even though we're all allowed to, because it's as human as it comes. But I would have still felt like, oh no, that's not for me. And I would have felt more shame to say that I was engaging in a trauma response. But suddenly when I can own what actually happened, I go, of course that's what this is. And it all makes so much sense. And it starts to take down the shame, because otherwise when it's fine and it's no big deal, and what am I even talking about? Everybody had it so much worse. Oh. Now when I'm living with all that unresolved stuff, the shame is brutal. It is toxic shame. It is corrosive. So unfawning, really, you can like look at it from all these different facets, but this is the one that came to mind when you asked the question, is like the ability to lessen the shame that I've been holding for everybody else my entire life. Again, talk about restoring a relationship to self. My relationship was built on holding everyone else's shame and thinking it was mine.
I love your body language as you're doing that. It's like,
yes, that's how it feels. Yeah. So I imagine what you meant was more like being in the world and sort of going, oh, I'm wanting to lean in and sort of manage you right now, but I'm actually staying with me. But I think that came so far down in the process.
And it does.
Yeah, that's
right.
And
it does.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the thing. Like when I work with people around using, hey, wait, they're saying like, I could never say, hey, wait to someone else. Like, I don't feel considered. I'm like, well, you don't have to.
No.
But being able to pull way back and knowing that it exists.
Yes.
And that you get to do it when you want to, that's the beginning of going, oh, I could. That to me was the beginning of realizing, oh, the story I've been telling myself about what my worth is and what I'm responsible for in other people is false. The entire premise is false.
Yes.
And that was what liberated me first, was just walking through the world with this new idea of like, oh.
Yeah. And it has to start as an idea. But even then, because I could have known, like, well, yes, I know that I'm not really responsible for someone else. I could know that intellectually. Mm-hmm. My body did not know that for one single second.
Body.
And did not believe it. And so that's also why I tell people, don't start with the hey, wait, because you're starting relationally. If you start relationally, you're going to say, hey, wait, and it's not going to go perfect. Right. And your body's going to go, see, I told you it wasn't safe. So what we have to do first is build this new relationship to ourselves, this sense of internal safety where we stop only orienting externally and we start to notice, maybe for the first time ever, like, who am I? How do I actually feel? What's the sensation? Otherwise, if it goes, like I said, even remotely sort of bad or what we perceive to be bad, yes, the contraction's going to happen and it's going to be that much harder. But I think a lot of people encourage, therapists or coaches, they can encourage people to move into the relationship and do it differently first. And
there's no ground for it, though.
There's no ground for it. And then if you're a fawner and you're the client, you go, well, that didn't work, but I can't tell my therapist that. Exactly. And now you go back and you start fawning for your therapist and you're like, that was so great and helpful. Thank you so much. But inside you're going, I can never be that honest with them again, right? There's no real opportunity to build actual trust here. And now we're doing it even with the people that we're paying, that we're going to help us. We're self-abandoning in their presence, and they think I'm such a good therapist.
You got it. That's how that works.
Yep. Not that I know from either end of the equation.
No, me neither. Me neither. That feels like that could be the beginning of the answer to this one question that I felt was really sweet from a woman who I know to be in her 60s. And she said, how does someone break the trance of fawning sooner both in their life and in an interaction? And so I think what I hear you saying is the first step to breaking the fawning is like, just start being more self-referential. What's true for me? How am I don't know. What would you say?
And I might even add a sprinkle of self-compassion in the self-referential, right? Just, I know that.
Well, novel idea.
I always do the kind of hand on heart when I think about self-compassion. And I might even take the finish line off the table completely, or the fact that there's a speed or there's where I'm trying to get. Can we just start with like whatever age you are? I've been fawning my whole life, and just stay there.
Because when you do that, you're with yourself.
You're
like that's the beginning.
You're taking away this contrasted version of who you think you're supposed to be or where you're supposed to be, which also has us now fawning even with ourselves to ourselves, because I go, well, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be there. So I must be doing something wrong, right? It's like, no. Let's strip that all away. Can we just notice what the truth is right now? And can you bring self-compassion to it? Because here's the other reality. I don't know if any of this would have ever become available to me if my stepdad didn't die. I mean that, truly. Yeah. When he passed away, I laid down on the kitchen floor right behind where I'm sitting right now. And I felt viscerally safer in the world than I had ever felt. And it wasn't because I saw him all the time or I had any real relationship with him. He was still on the planet and my body knew the difference. And so when he died, it was and this is common for folks, it released me a little bit more into feeling like, oh, maybe I can be a little bit more safe. But there are people where that person or those people or those communities, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so again, I don't want to make anything a finish line of like, you're doing it great or you're not doing so great or you should be further along. There is no such thing. There is this moment.
And person listening, my hope is that when she said that, the same thing happened in your body that happened in mine, which was like my pelvis relaxed and my tongue softened. And there's that, that's that piece of just, can you take away any of the urgency, any of the piece of like, you're going to get a gold star if you do this, just take it away.
But we want that gold star. I still want it, but it's the other reason that I say, please don't call me Dr. Ingrid, call me Ingrid. And it's why I lead with personal experience, but it also happens to be sitting next to a PhD in a private practice and whatever other things you think sort of put me on some pedestal. And I go, no, 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 because I really want people to know, yeah, I have all this information. I literally just wrote the book called Fawning, and I probably fawned, yesterday.
Oh,
And I'm probably going to do it again today and tomorrow. And honestly, I'm not mad about that anymore, because if that is the strategy that has kept me safe my whole life, it is not going to just completely go away.
yeah.
Here's the point. We are not meant to live in survival mode 24/7. So that's a more interesting measure, I think, instead of going like, how do I go from here to like a better version? Go start from where you are and go, am I doing it like a teeny tiny fraction less than I was 5 years ago? That's a win.
Cool.
That's
Yep.
enormous. You know that saying, I'm sure it's not factual, but they say if you start in New York and you're flying to the West Coast and you change just 1 degree, you're going to end up in LA or you're going to end up in San Francisco. I
Yeah.
love that. That's the kind of not music. What word was I looking for?
Muse?
Measure? I don't
Measure?
know.
I love that. My brain does that too.
Often. That's the kind of movement, maybe it was, that we're talking about. It's this like, also because safer is slower in the nervous system, fast is overwhelming, and the body ultimately is going to decide, not me, not your therapist. I can have lots of opinions about what I think I should be doing and how quickly I should be doing it and how effective it's going to be. My body's like, that's hilarious. So we have to be with the body and what is available to it. And it tends to be very different than what I think it should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Can I tell you the line in your book that, I mean, pretty much every line I was like, yep, 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 I resonate. But then there was one that made me go like,
oh no.
It was in one of the chapters where you were talking about your dating life.
No.
And you said that I saw all of his red flags as on-ramps to my helpfulness. And my whole body went, that's exactly the language, all of his red flags were on-ramps to my helpfulness. I was like,
because listen, I talk about it with the language of currency too. If my only currency in the world, it's also why I became a therapist. My currency in the world is based on how helpful I can be to you.
Could we do a study of how many therapists and coaches are fawners?
Honestly, we should, because as much as I love the wounded healer notion and that, we go into this field, I think it's what has been missing is also the piece that, well, I already gave the example of a client fawning with a therapist and the therapist going like, I'm doing such a great job. So I have been in that role, not knowing that I was also fawning with my client, not knowing that I didn't have access to my anger or rage. And so I probably can't really hold it for you. So I'm going to kind of keep us in this like safer ground over here. And I certainly can't tolerate you being mad at me, because then, the world disappears. So if we really come by this stuff honestly, I think we need courses on this for therapists and coaches and anyone in a helping profession, quite honestly.
Nurses, teachers.
That's right.
I was just saying to someone the other day how I don't actually have a lot of corporate people in my practice. Most of my practice is other entrepreneurs, coaches, therapists, teachers, nurses, people whose lives
are built around being helpful. And
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
So that pattern of seeing someone's red flags as on-ramps for helpfulness actually leads me to a question that came in from another coach. And hold on, I'm trying to figure out like
before you ask that question. Here's the other thing. This is why telling us chronic fawners that we have like a self-esteem problem or that we're always playing small. fawning doesn't feel like a self-esteem problem or like you're playing small when those red flags become on-ramps to your helpfulness. Because here's what happens.
Yes.
We are genuinely helpful. We can move mountains in other people's lives. We can unearth things that it feels powerful.
You look like a superhero as you're doing that with your hands.
Conjuring, right? There is a witchery and a conjuring that can happen. And it's the same as true when we talk about trauma bonding, which may be too deep of a dive, but it doesn't feel like you're disempowered. It feels like you're powerful. And that's why understanding that particular piece of it is so helpful, but it's like, it's the true on-ramp to getting free from it.
Yes. Yes. And I actually, okay, so I think that's the perfect lead into this question. Okay. This is from a person who also works with a lot of fawning bodies.
Yeah.
And she said she notices that many of them keep ending up in asymmetrical relationships where they suffer and get re-traumatized and again. But because they've often done years of self-work and have high awareness, they often frame it as, well, this is the perfect place for me to train. This is where I heal.
Oh, I've been there. I have.
Right?
I wish I've looked for it when I was writing this book. I have emails convincing myself of that very rationale that I'm drafting to the man who's leaving me. And I'm like, but this is the opportunity for us to finally work through our stuff because healing needs to be relational. And
I've written that email.
Yes. And it was so smart. And I literally cannot find it. And maybe I saved myself a little bit of shame. But, so here's the thing. Healing still remains relational. But the difference is you're not trying to stay and work it out in the same dysfunctional dynamics. So it becomes relational with yourself and in walking away from the patterns that do not serve, which was like, what are you talking about? And I think it's so, it seems so impossible or shocking because, again, a lot of people do come by a chronic fawn response from childhood trauma where you couldn't walk away from the relationship. So it's like that option just never resides in your own body. And so it never was possible. So the idea that it's possible now is like, what are you even talking about? It's, even as I say it and I compare and contrast the two, it still feels revelatory. It's like, really? We do have that choice? Because it didn't feel like a choice.
It feels like a really important distinction to make.
Yes. Yes. So I love that question. It's maybe one of the favorite ones.
So if
this whole,
yeah, isn't it good?
Yes.
So if you're in it, if you are the person who you're on your nth romantic relationship where you know you're like, I know I'm fawning with this person, but I can heal this on the inside. Mm-hmm. How would that person know the distinction between genuine growth work and just repeating essentially the hit, you know?
Oh God, I wish I could bottle this up and distill it down because I think it's probably more complicated depending on the person, the relationship. It reminds me of someone I was working with recently who's in this very scenario. And they were saying, but the other person is saying all the right things and they're saying they're going to do their work and they're, taking all these steps. But then they said this, but my body knows it's going to happen again.
There you go.
And I went, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
What does your body know to be true? And as someone who's working with them, what does my body know that I've seen them already in this same pattern? Now this is time number 3 and number 4. And I go, gosh, this really resembles what happened last time with the promises and the pretty words and all of the things. And sometimes we have to go through that cycle more times than any of us want to for the body to go, okay, I get it. This isn't changing, but what can change is that I can walk away. That's the thing with my first marriage. It was the first time I'd ever broken up with anybody ever, all the way back to like my fifth grade little boyfriend, right? I just stayed and I hoped and I helped and I waited, until they were finally like, I'm out of here. But it was this really pivotal moment where I stopped waiting for someone else to choose me and I chose me. And honestly, that relationship almost feels like a successful one because I finally walked away.
Yes.
And I said, I'm not going to wait for someone else to figure it out and go, oh yeah, you're worth it. I'm going to go and do all these things that maybe I even want to do, but I'm not taking any action towards, or whatever it is. I stopped waiting.
And you chose yourself.
And I chose me by walking away. And boy, it came with so much heartbreak, but I felt the difference of knowing, it felt empowering, even though it was devastating at the same time.
You didn't break your own heart. Because I think staying is breaking your own heart.
Me breaking my own heart. My heart was broken because I really stepped in wanting this marriage to work. I took my vows seriously. But when someone's lying to you and manipulating you, right, it was sort of like, okay, now I can't break my heart again by staying and thinking I can do all the work for two people. And he broke my heart. And I think that's the difference too, between not holding the shame for the entire system anymore. It goes, this piece belongs to you. I cannot hold it anymore.
Yes. Okay. So that goes with this question.
Okay.
So this person wanted to know, the let them theory, Mel Robbins, where it's essentially let them. I don't have any control over that person's behavior. Yeah. So this person wanted to know, based with her ex-husband, she said, what's the difference between fawning by not fighting back and just saying, let them. I can't control what he's doing. I'm not going to change him. So is there a place where that bleeds into fawning?
It does. That's why I have a little bit of an issue with that as like an umbrella that solves sort of every problem, because the reality is that it branches off the let them theory. Maybe there's like, oh, that's not mine and I'm not holding it, and just let them live their life. I'm going to be responsible for mine. They can be responsible for theirs. I go, okay, great. There's some like healthy sort of, relationship to self and others. And that very same idea can absolutely embolden our fawn response. Well, it's why I talk in the book about toxic positivity, about spiritual bypassing. These are all ways that we go, all good vibes all the time. Don't worry about it. Or, I'm just going to pray for them. And meanwhile, there's real dysfunction going on that we can't attend to because there's this layer of defense around it that sounds really good. The reality is that some spiritual ideas or, forgiveness is the answer. Well, is it really the answer when there's continual harm coming at you day after day? So those ideas can rob us of the ability to feel the reality of what's actually going on. But it's a great marketing idea, and we love a panacea. We love the idea.
We?
And I go, oh, but it's really keeping people in harm's way sometimes. And then I go, oh, I can't endorse that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Because, because it feels like it feels vapory again. It feels like I have to go away somehow. I have to disconnect from my reality. I have to disconnect from the reality.
That's right.
And so, is it fawning?
Yes, because if there's this real just like going along to get along, but I don't really get to exist and own the parts of me that are deeply resentful or terrified, that's the other difference between how do you know if it's like genuinely giving and showing up or when it's a fawn response. Like, look at your resentments. How resentful are you still? Oh, well, maybe there's some fawning going on there. Maybe you don't actually want to be showing up to the degree that you are. So we start to find that we have these little tells, that's like, well, Are you still secretly feeling like, well, this is all going to change any minute now? Like you're writing your own story about this finish line that doesn't exist. I talked about that in my memoir about toxic hope. My husband, my current husband, I was talking about something that had happened in my family one day, and I was just like shocked. I was like, can you believe that this is happening? And he like stopped me in my tracks and he said, Ingrid, you're the only one that doesn't believe that this is happening. Because as long as I've known you, there's been nothing more consistent than what is actually happening right now. And it blew my mind. And it gave me this opportunity to see how I'd been living in this toxic hope, which was the idea that, yeah, all that stuff happened, but it's going to get better any minute now, right? So every time it didn't, my system was shocked. So if you're also living in that place all the time where you're like, can you believe? Well, take a look. Take a look at historically, is this really like not what's been happening the whole dang time?
Right. Like, how hard is this to believe, really?
How hard is this to believe? But it was so fascinating to me that he could see it so clearly. And I was still, and honestly, those young parts of me that wanted to hold on to the idea that A, it wasn't that bad before, and B, it's really going to be amazing any minute now. I go, oh, I can have compassion for those parts that wanted to believe that was true. But again, it's not reality. And so unfawning, being in this body, being in this life means having conscious choice, means engaging in reality.
Reality, which is why it's so healing and so necessary.
And hard and hard.
And hard. Oh yeah, that too. And hard.
So like, but it's pain that's worth it. It's that Resma Menakem idea of the difference between clean pain and dirty pain. Listen, I was feeling pain every time I was shocked and couldn't believe it. And here we go again, same cycle. But that's that dirty pain, circling the drain is kind of how I talk about it, versus the clean pain of going, ouch, this is painful. Like my divorce, like, oh, my heart is broken here. But it is moving me through to the other side of something. It's a growing pain. And the body can discern the difference there too. It's why I also believe that doing this work is so brave. It's so brave because it is that hard, which is the other reason why if we look at like, oh, I want to be further along than I am, it's just like, this is hard enough already. Just let your body have the time that it needs. Let it be gentle because it's already a lot to tolerate. We're literally widening our ability to tolerate more and more reality, which means we're going in the direction of joy and creativity and relationship to self and all this wonderful stuff, but it's also expanding in the other direction around the grief and the pain and the reality and the heartbreak. I still believe it's so worth it because I don't know, I would rather have all of me than like some made up version of me in a life that's not even real. But some people don't choose that. And I go, I get that too. I get it.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. But I would choose wholeness as much as I possibly can. And am always so grateful when someone else does, because sitting with someone like you, Ingrid, who has chosen wholeness and cares about wholeness, even if it's not a perfect ideal ever, like an attempt at wholeness, but it makes you a real person and so enjoyable to be with.
I appreciate
and trustworthy and all,
trust.
Yeah.
Right. And I can trust myself more now.
Yeah.
Because I have this relationship to my own body, even where I go, it's like when they told me, oh, big publishing wants a book, my whole body was like, this is a yes, but I didn't have that same access to my body before for the same reason of like the red flags were on ramps to my helpfulness. It was like, oh, no, that's what's pulling me. I was oriented to the external red flags of my life rather than to the internal stuff of my body. And if that was all I had, if that was it, where my compass is no longer pointing always at you and it's actually pointed back at me as to where the next step is, what feels true for me, where do I go from here, that would be enough.
Yes. Okay, so with that,
Yeah.
what is, on a real practical, nitty gritty, Ingrid in her normal Tuesday afternoon life, what do you do, a practice or a ritual that helps you stay with yourself when you're around other people? Like to have that orientation of this is me and my body with this person.
Wow. Well, it's a two-parter. Every time that you've mentioned that, or we've kind of walked around that idea, even in this conversation, the image in my mind is connecting to my gut. And I think I even like put my hands on my midsection. So for me, that's where most of the information resides. And it could be, like you mentioned, the pelvis softening. It could be in that, like noticing the clenching, or, I tend to be very visual and somatic. Different people have different channels of how they connect to themselves, but those are mine. But the second piece of information that snuck in there is like a little back door, and it's not quite an answer to your question, but it's probably more true, is I still connect most deeply with other people. This is why it's not really a true answer in hindsight, because I still need a teeny bit of space after the connection. Sometimes I still need to be able to have that. And then when I step away, I can notice more deeply what my truth was in that moment, even moments before. And I don't think that's bad. I think what it gives me is more information that's now mine. And often what I can do, if it matters, is I can return to that relationship, and I can be more honest the next time. I might even call someone right back, or sort of turn around and go, you know what? I misspoke, or I know I said that thing, but I thought about it a little bit more, and this feels more true for me. Is that we get a do-over. It doesn't all have to happen in that specific moment. I think giving myself that flexibility of expansion and contraction over the long haul helps me be more present moment to moment, but I'm not putting that pressure on myself.
I'm so, so happy you said that, because I think that is one of the things that us fawners have to learn and relearn is that a real relationship, when you're really relating with someone else, it has all kinds of breadth and flexibility, and you can go, hey, wait, last time we talked, I said this.
Yes.
And actually, once I sat with it, what I really wanted to say was this. And that's completely fine. There's enough space for that. And if you've been in a fawning body for a long, long time, I don't think that's something that you trust. So I'm so happy you said that.
And it reminds me too of what I did write about, which is, for a lot of us, we never had the experience of a rupture and repair in relationship. We just experienced a lot of rupture, and our bodies are the repair. And so even this one tiny slice is growing our ability to tolerate rupture and repair. It drops the shame around it. It's like, it lets us be more whole, even in the sense of like, wow, when we had that conversation, I realized I was exhausted, or I was so stressed, I had all this other stuff going. It allows us to be whole people in the world. And there's a perfectionist thing that a lot of not all of them, but a lot of fawners can find themselves, is because we do sort of feel like this performance of life that we're doing, it has to be right, it has to be curated for you, and it doesn't tolerate the messiness of being real. And so this hindsight piece is what gives me an opportunity to be present to the messiness without being a ball of goo in the world all the time, right? We have to keep it together a bit. Yeah.
Enough. Yeah.
Enough. Just enough. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has just been so fun.
Welcome. I'm like, did I say anything that was relatable or of value? It's so interesting. I'm like, I don't have a sense of it, but I hope that that I did say something.
Well, let me say this for your external validation.
Yes, I still enjoy it.
You did. I know, right? You did. And I mean, the way I know that is that I could feel you the whole time. And I
Mm,
think that's the thing that us smarty, perfectionistic fawner people,
yeah.
it's like, well, what did I say? Did I sound smart? Did the thing that I say land for somebody? As opposed to really, 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 really starting to trust that if someone can feel you, if I feel you, if the person
Yeah.
listening can feel you, like that that's enough. That there's that it's going back to that quote I said at the beginning of
Yeah.
the stories themselves are the nourishment. If you can really take it in and feel it, it's not, we don't
Mhm.
have to be so smart about everything.
Oh, I think that also plays on this idea of how do you stay with yourself, with others. I don't know that I was the type of person who like rehearsed things in advance in just like day to day life. But if it was something like this where I was being interviewed and I felt like, oh, I need to sound like I know what I'm saying, like there's no part of me that prepared for this conversation. And I know that you asked questions that I hadn't heard before. We hadn't ever sat together. I wasn't even sure like what you were hoping for necessarily, but I, rather than orienting to all of that, what does she want and what's a good podcast for her, that I did allow myself to answer the question in the moment from an internal place of whatever's true to me today. And honestly, if you asked me these same questions a week ago or a week from now, I would probably answer them differently. And I love that. Like the freedom that that gives me, it's like an inhale and an exhale. That too is that flexibility thing. I just go, yeah, nothing has to be a performance or curated or perfect. It gets to live and breathe.
And you get to live and breathe.
Which is the point. It's not for the
Yeah.
other's consumption. That's not what
Yeah.
I was oriented to. I was oriented to where does this question land in me right now? What feels most true? And I really do think that that was not available to me before, no matter the topic. Just sitting at lunch with someone, they would ask a question, and I think all these anxious thoughts used to cloud every response of like, what does a smart person say? What did somebody else say about this? What do I know about this person that leads me to believe that the correct answer is X, Y, and Z? And that noise was absent in this conversation. I'm just aware of that. And what a relief.
Mm. I agree. I agree. My whole intent coming in today, because I
Yeah.
have notes and I had questions and all the things. And right before I came in, I told my husband, I said, my goal is to feel connected and easeful and to know where my body is in my chair. And if I can do that, I think it's going to go okay.
Wow, what an amazing intention. I want to just carry that into every moment of every day.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me too.
I
Me
love it.
too.
And you held that space for me, and you did that intentionally before we began, too. So I really, really appreciate that. And the invitation and the thoughtfulness, too, that matters, right? Around you spending time with the book and being so thoughtful also with your audience to bring in the questions. Like that's so meaningful to me that I know through you that I'm engaging with people that really get it and are hungry for this and that we're all on the same team. And I feel a part of that
Yeah.
by getting to talk to you. So thank you for that. Not
I'm so
fawning. That's a genuine, real
No,
feeling.
I feel it. I feel it. I feel it. And we're so grateful. It really, this is such a treat. And I think the person listening is just going to hopefully feel your presence and the genuine desire for their freedom, because that's what I feel in your
Yes.
work.
Thank you
So
so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you so much, listener, for being here today. I hope something resonated with you and helps you to have a good experience of yourself in your life and your relationships, because you really do deserve that. And if someone came to mind while you were listening today, could you take a moment and share this episode with them right now? And if you haven't had a chance to yet, please leave a review for Hey Wait, because both of those things help new people find the show. And it means a lot to me to be able to reach and connect with new people around this work. With that, if you have an idea for a guest or a topic, or you have a question for me, feel free to reach out to me at Hey Wait with Jay on Instagram. Hey Wait is produced by Viv at First Click VA, and the original music is by Dalton Grant. And hey wait, before we go, I want you to remember, your insights matter, and the right people will meet you there. So stay with yourself. And I'll see you next time.